A mockery begins the crystalline walls of the Zephyrian. Command vessel hummed with energy as intercepted human transmissions played across the main viewing chamber. Supreme Commander Thexville-as elongated form shifted in his biomechanical throne, his 6 arms moving in synchronized patterns that conveyed amusement to his subordinates. The humans on screen moved through what they called combat training with laughable inefficiency. Observe their pitiful methodology. Thexville's telepathic voice resonated through the minds of his war council. His golden eyes, each the size of a human head, fixed on the displayed footage. They crawl through synthetic mud, carrying projectile weapons that require physical manipulation. Most amusing of all, they practice close-quarters combat using primitive bladed instruments. The footage showed human soldiers running obstacle courses, practicing with bayonets, and conducting hand-to-hand combat drills. To the Zephyrians, who had mastered energy manipulation and fought through psychic links across vast distances, these displays seemed like children playing with sticks. General Caxter, Thexville's second-in-command, rippled his membrane-like wings in what passed for laughter among his species. Their tactical doctrine appears frozen in time. While we manipulate matter at the molecular level and coordinate through quantum consciousness, they still rely on verbal communication and physical proximity for battlefield coordination. The war chamber filled with the harmonic resonance that indicated collective amusement among the Zephyrian leadership. They had conquered 17 star systems using their advanced warfare techniques. Energy shields that could deflect any physical projectile, plasma weapons that vaporized targets at the cellular level, and the ability to phase in and out of dimensions made them virtually untouchable. In combat, strategic analyst Vex Ara projected additional intelligence onto the central display. Our deep space reconnaissance indicates humans have been engaged in continuous warfare with their own species for over 5,000 rotations. Despite this extensive combat experience, their methods remained remarkably unchanged. They still employed techniques involving physical positioning, crude explosives, and direct confrontation. Commander Thexville studied the data streams flowing past his consciousness. Human military academies teaching ancient strategies, soldiers, training with weapons that fired metal projectiles, combat manuals that discussed concepts like flanking maneuvers and artillery support. To a species that could bend reality through willpower alone, these concepts seemed quaint at best. Initiate Phase 1 of the Conquest Protocol, Thexville commanded, his thoughts reaching every ship in the vast armada. Earth subjugation should require no more than 3 rotations. Their primitive defenses will collapse upon first contact with our technology. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like metallic flowers blooming in the void. Each vessel was a marvel of biotechnological integration, capable of reshaping itself according to battlefield requirements. The flagship alone stretched 15 kilometers in length, its surface crawling with adaptive armor that could adjust to any threat. Earth's response was exactly what the Zephyrians had anticipated. Crude chemical rockets launched from the planet's surface, carrying primitive nuclear warheads that detonated harmlessly against their adaptive shields. Space stations opened fire with particle beam weapons that barely registered on their energy. Absorption systems. The orbital battle lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. Their space-based defenses have been neutralized. General Caxter, reported as burning debris from human vessels, streaked across Earth's atmosphere. No casualties sustained. Their weapons technology appears to be approximately 2,000 cycles behind our current capabilities. Supreme Commander Thexville felt the satisfying weight of inevitable victory. The humans had fought bravely but futilely, exactly as projected. Now came the ground assault, where their forces would demonstrate the full superiority of Zephyrian military doctrine. The landing would be swift, decisive, and merciful. they would offer the humans the chance to serve their new masters with dignity. The first wave of Zephyrian ground forces descended upon major population centers across the globe. Their dropships, sleek teardrop-shaped vessels, deployed thousands of warriors equipped with personal energy shields, molecular disruptors, and the ability to phase partially out of phase with reality. Against such overwhelming technological advantages, human resistance would be token at best. Lieutenant Commander Yulseth led the assault on the ruins of what humans called New York City. His sensors detected scattered human military units taking positions among the destroyed buildings, but their heat signatures and electromagnetic emissions made them as visible as beacons in the darkness. The engagement would be concluded before the local star completed its rotation. Advance to primary objectives, Yulseth transmitted to his battalion. Maintain standard formation protocols. Expect minimal resistance. That was when they encountered Captain Sarek Chun, had been a Special Forces operator for 12 years before the invasion. She had served in conflicts across 3 continents, mastering the art of asymmetric warfare against technologically superior opponents. When the Zephyrians landed, she was leading a reconnaissance unit through the ruins of Manhattan, gathering intelligence on alien capabilities and weaknesses. The first indication that something was wrong came when Yulseth's advanced scouts simply vanished. One moment they were transmitting regular status updates. The next, their biosignatures disappeared from the tactical network. No weapons fire detected, no energy discharges, no distress signals. They were simply gone. Deploy secondary reconnaissance protocol, Yulseth ordered, though uneasiness crept through his psychic projections. Expand sensor sweep to maximum range. Captain Chun watched the alien patrol from her concealed position 300 meters away. She had been studying their movement patterns for 6 hours, noting their reliance on energy-based sensors and their predictable formation tactics. The aliens moved like they expected their enemies to announce themselves with fanfare and artillery barrages. She had learned different lessons in the mountains of Afghanistan and the jungles of Southeast Asia. Sometimes the most primitive methods were the most effective precisely because they were primitive. A sharpened stick could kill just as efficiently as a laser rifle if applied correctly, and it generated no energy signature whatsoever. Chun's team consisted of 8 soldiers, all veterans of unconventional warfare. They carried a mixture of salvaged alien technology and human weapons that shouldn't have worked together, but somehow did. More importantly, they carried the accumulated knowledge of humanity's long history of fighting impossible odds. The second group of alien scouts discovered the fate of their predecessors when they found the bodies arranged in a pattern that seemed to mock their tactical formations. The Zephyrian warriors had died from wounds that their medical scanners couldn't identify. Sharp objects had penetrated their armor at joints and weak points that their designers had considered impenetrable. Impossible, Lieutenant Commander, Yulseth muttered as he examined the tactical data. Our armor specifications indicate no human weapon should be capable of this penetration. What he didn't understand was that Captain Chun had spent 3 days studying a captured Zephyrian combat suit, learning its construction methods, and identifying its vulnerabilities. Every piece of technology had weaknesses, and humans had become masters at exploiting them through patient observation and creative problem-solving. The main Zephyrian force advanced cautiously through the urban landscape, their sensors sweeping for heat signatures and electromagnetic emissions. They found nothing unusual, just the background radiation of a damaged city. Their tactical algorithms indicated clear passage to their primary objective. Captain Chun smiled from her position. Inside a collapsed subway tunnel, her team positioned at carefully chosen points throughout the surrounding blocks. The aliens were thinking like a technologically advanced civilization. relying on their sensors and energy-based detection methods. They weren't thinking like predators who had learned to hunt using nothing but patience, intelligence, and the ability to use their environment as a weapon. The first explosion wasn't from a high-tech device or an energy weapon. It was from a modified human landmine, packed with salvaged alien power cells and triggered by a simple pressure plate that registered below the alien sensor threshold. The blast disabled 3 Zephyrian warriors and sent crystalline fragments spinning through the air. Before the aliens could react, Chun's team executed the second phase of their attack. Crossbow bolts, silent and producing no energy signature, struck at the joints in their armor from 6 different directions. The projectiles had been modified with alien metal fragments that their own technology couldn't detect until impact. Lieutenant Commander Yilseth watched his tactical display in growing alarm as his force strength indicators flickered and died. 30% casualties in the first 60 seconds of engagement, and his sensors still couldn't identify the source of the attacks. The humans were fighting like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing without trace. Requesting immediate tactical support, he transmitted to the command vessel, encountering unexpected resistance from indigenous forces. Their weapons and methods do not conform to our intelligence projections. In the biomechanical throne of his flagship, Supreme Commander Thexville experienced something unprecedented in his military career. The feeling humans called doubt. His ground forces, equipped with technology that should have made them invincible, were being systematically eliminated by opponents wielding primitive weapons and employing tactics that predated spaceflight. Captain Chun and her team had already moved to their next position, following escape routes they had mapped weeks earlier, through storm drains and maintenance tunnels that didn't register on alien sensors. They left behind a scene that would haunt the Zephyrian survivors. Their advanced warriors, brought low by techniques as old as warfare itself, combined with human ingenuity and an intimate knowledge of urban terrain as the local star began to set over the ruins of New York City. Lieutenant Commander Yilseth realized that everything his people thought they knew about human combat capabilities had been catastrophically wrong. The humans weren't fighting like a primitive species trying to resist technological superiority. They were fighting like apex predators defending their territory with every advantage their environment could provide. The laughter in the Zephyrian command chambers had died. In its place grew something their species hadn't experienced in 1,000 rotations of conquest. Fear. The hunter becomes the hunted. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian invasion began, and Captain Sarah Chun had become something the aliens had no tactical classification for. In their military doctrine, warriors were either defeated and eliminated, or they surrendered and were processed. Chun had done neither. Instead, she had evolved into what their own mythology might have called a vengeful spirit, haunting their operations and striking without warning or mercy. The abandoned office building in downtown Manhattan had become Chun's fortress and laboratory. The 43rd floor provided an excellent view of Zephyrian patrol routes while remaining invisible to their aerial reconnaissance. More importantly, it housed her workshop where she had been conducting the most dangerous research project of her military career. She was learning to think like a Zephyrian. Scattered across multiple workbenches lay the components of alien technology she had salvaged from successful ambushes. Energy cells, communication devices, armor segments, and weapon components. Each piece represented hours of careful study, testing, and experimentation. Chun had discovered that Zephyrian technology, for all its advanced capabilities, followed logical principles that could be understood and exploited. Status report, she whispered into her modified communication device, a hybrid of human radio technology and Zephyrian quantum transmitters that allowed her team to coordinate without detection. Sector 7 is clear, came the response from Sergeant Martinez, positioned 6 blocks south. 2 patrol units redirected to avoid our area. They're learning to fear certain neighborhoods. Chun smiled at that intelligence. The Zephyrians were adapting their tactics, but they were adapting in predictable ways. They avoided areas where their patrols had suffered casualties, established buffer zones around human resistance strongholds, and increased their sensor sweeps in patterns that could be anticipated and countered. They were fighting like a technologically superior force, trying to minimize losses, not like conquerors claiming territory. Her next target had been carefully selected after days of observation and intelligence gathering. Sub-Commander Hextall, a high-ranking Zephyrian officer responsible for coordinating ground operations across the northeastern sector. He had established his command post in what had once been the United Nations building, probably chosen for its symbolic value. The location was heavily defended, surrounded by energy barriers and patrolled by elite guard units. Chun had been tracking Hextall's movements for 72 hours, learning his habits and routines. The alien commander followed rigid protocols, inspecting defensive positions at precisely scheduled intervals and traveling along predetermined routes. His escort consisted of 6 warriors equipped with the most advanced armor and weapons the Zephyrian military possessed. Under normal circumstances, such a target would be impossible for a small human unit to engage successfully. But Chun had long ago stopped thinking in terms of normal circumstances. She had learned to see opportunities where conventional military thinking saw only obstacles. The subway tunnels beneath the city had become her domain. The Zephyrians, evolved on a world without extensive underground networks, had difficulty adapting their sensors to the complex electromagnetic environment created by abandoned transit systems. Their technology, designed for open battlefield conditions, struggled with the maze of metal conduits and concrete barriers that lay beneath. Manhattan streets. Chun moved through the darkness with practiced silence, her modified equipment creating no energy signature that alien sensors could detect. She had learned to think like a hunter rather than a soldier, stalking her prey with infinite patience and striking only when success was guaranteed. Behind her, 7 hand-picked specialists followed in single file, each carrying weapons that represented the marriage of human ingenuity and alien technology. Sub-Commander Hextall's inspection route would take him past the entrance to the old subway system at exactly 14:30 hours local time. Chun had verified this pattern 3 times, and Zephyrian military doctrine emphasized consistency and predictability in security procedures. What the aliens considered efficient protocol, she recognized as fatal vulnerability. The ambush site had been prepared with meticulous attention to detail. Shaped charges created from alien power cells, positioned to channel the explosion in precisely calculated directions. Crossbow positions offering overlapping fields of fire while remaining invisible to energy-based detection systems. Escape routes through maintenance tunnels that led to predetermined rally points 3 kilometers away. Most importantly, Chun had prepared psychological elements designed to exploit what she had learned about Zephyrian mentality. The aliens valued technological superiority and logical tactical progression. They expected their enemies to behave rationally according to established military principles. They had no framework for understanding an opponent who treated each engagement as a unique creative problem requiring innovative solutions. Asterisk. At 14:27 hours, Hextall's escort appeared precisely on schedule. 6 elite warriors in gleaming combat armor, their weapons powered and ready, their sensors sweeping methodically for threats. They moved in the rigid formation patterns that Zephyrian military doctrine prescribed, each warrior maintaining exact distances and angles relative to their commander. Chun watched them approach through the scope of her modified sniper rifle, a hybrid weapon that fired projectiles accelerated by alien energy systems but guided by human ballistic principles. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger as she counted down the seconds to the predetermined moment of attack. The first indication Sub-Commander Hextall received that something was wrong came when his lead scout's head simply vanished in a spray of crystalline fragments. The projectile that killed him had been fired from a position that shouldn't have existed according to their terrain analysis, using a weapon that generated no energy signature their sensors could detect. Before the escort could react, Chan's team executed a coordinated strike that demonstrated everything the Zephyrians had failed to understand about human warfare. Explosions erupted from multiple directions simultaneously, but not randomly. Each blast was precisely timed and positioned to drive the alien warriors toward predetermined kill zones while cutting off their escape routes. Crossbow bolts, silent and deadly, struck at the weak points in their armor that Chun had identified. Through weeks of careful study, the projectiles had been modified with fragments of alien metal that their own defensive systems couldn't distinguish from background debris until the moment of impact. Sub-Commander Hextall found himself alone, in the center of a tactical nightmare. His escort lay scattered around him, their advanced technology useless against an enemy that fought according to principles his military doctrine had never anticipated. His personal shields deflected energy weapons and projectiles, but they couldn't protect him from the psychological weapon Chun had deployed most effectively: fear. You cannot hide behind your technology forever. Chun's voice emerged from speaker's position throughout the ambush site, her words translated into Zephyrian through captured communication devices. We know your weaknesses. We have learned your patterns. You are no longer the hunters. You are the prey. The sub-commander's 3 remaining functional warriors attempted to establish a defensive perimeter, their weapons sweeping frantically for targets that refused to reveal themselves. Their sensors detected nothing but background radiation and the electromagnetic interference generated by the abandoned city around them. Chun emerged from her concealment like a ghost materializing from shadow. Her modified armor, a patchwork of human and alien technology, made her appear more like a mythological creature than a human soldier. In her hands, she carried weapons that should not have existed: alien energy cells powering human projectile systems, Zephyrian targeting computers integrated with human ballistic software. The engagement that followed would be analyzed by Zephyrian military theorists for years afterward, though they would never fully understand what they observed. Sub-Commander Hextall, an officer with centuries of combat experience, found himself outmatched by a human who fought like no opponent he had ever encountered. Chun moved through the battlefield like water flowing around obstacles, appearing where she was least expected and striking from directions that defied tactical logic. She used the environment itself as a weapon, turning debris into projectiles, and collapsed structures into fortress positions that appeared and disappeared as needed. When the engagement ended, Sub-Commander Hextall lay among his fallen warriors, his crystalline life force slowly ebbing from wounds that his medical systems couldn't heal. Chun knelt beside him, her face visible for the first time during their encounter. "Tell your commanders," she said quietly, "that humans don't fight like the species you've conquered before. We've spent thousands of years learning to survive against impossible odds. We've mastered the art of turning disadvantages into advantages. Your technology makes you powerful, but it also makes you predictable." In the command vessel orbiting Earth, Supreme Commander Thexville received the news of Hextall's death with something approaching panic. This was no longer a simple planetary conquest. The humans had proven capable of learning, adapting, and innovating at a rate that exceeded every projection in their strategic databases. Across the globe, similar stories emerged from other occupied territories. Human resistance fighters combining primitive techniques with salvaged alien technology. Warriors who fought like predators rather than soldiers. using patience, intelligence, and intimate knowledge of their environment to overcome technologically superior opponents. The war that was supposed to end in 3 rotations had become something unprecedented in Zephyrian military history. A conflict against an enemy that refused to follow established rules of warfare, that treated each battle as an opportunity for creative problem-solving, and that seemed to grow stronger and more dangerous with each encounter. Captain Sarah Chun, and thousands of human fighters like her, had taught the galaxy's most advanced military force a lesson that would echo through their collective consciousness for generations. Sometimes the most primitive methods were the most effective, especially when wielded by a species that had spent millennia learning to survive through ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat as inevitable. The laughter had died completely in the Zephyrian war chambers. In its place grew a grudging respect for an enemy that had proven one of humanity's oldest truths. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog that determines victory.